Kevin Spacey is one of those names on a movie marquee that sells tickets. And it wasn't always like that. He's been acting for nearly 20 years in movies, television, and on stage. But it wasn't until the mid-1990s that he began to make a name for himself with a series of memorable roles. We first aired this story last February, the week Spacey was nominated for an Oscar as Best Actor in American Beauty. Well, he won that Oscar, and as we discovered, at age 40, he's anything but your typical movie star. You do this very dangerous, foolhardy thing.
Oh, yeah, the zapping.
What is this?
It's the greatest way to get around Manhattan that I've ever found. While you're sitting in the back of a cab, annoyed that traffic is moving at, 5 feet every 15 minutes.
Hey, kids.
I am passing you at 15 miles an hour with a nice breeze. It's also quite anonymous because people don't look at the person on the scooter, they look at the scooter.
What about this business that you don't want anybody to see behind the mask of Kevin Spacey?
I think that for me has been about protecting the characters. I don't want people to follow me. I've always believed that the longer an actor remains in the shadows, then the characters emerge. And that, for me, is my primary function.
When we talk about movie stars or big actors, their personal lives have always been fodder for the public.
Sure.
And the biggest stars...
And some of them choose to participate in that fodder, and some of them choose not to.
For Spacey, it's all about the acting and the parts he's played.
Freeze! Police!
From a corrupt cop in L.A. Confidential to a menacing grasshopper in A Bug's Life.
That's why we're going back!
To a husband having a midlife crisis in American Beauty.
You two do whatever you want to do, whenever you want to do it, and I don't complain. All I want is the same...
There are those who'll bet you that he'll win an Academy Award as Best Actor for the role.
Don't interrupt me, honey. Success is both a fantastic thing and a little dangerous, I think, And so I think that one has to always try to keep success a little bit at bay.
Another thing he's tried to keep at bay are questions about his sexuality. 2 years ago, a magazine strongly suggested that he's gay.
I took some degree of ribbing, and I took some degree of less than subtle inferences because...
You took abuse, actually.
Well, I just decided I wasn't going to answer that question yes or no. I just think it shouldn't matter at all. That people should not be asked to pass this sort of litmus test.
But questions about his sexuality would not go away. So he decided he had to respond, choosing the overtly heterosexual magazine Playboy to publicly deny that he is gay.
Because it wasn't true in my case. So I felt it was just time to sort of, if I wasn't going to tell people what I was, then at least I should tell people what I'm not. What I've tried to stop and what I am against is ignorance and intolerance and presumption and stupidity.
So, do you have a girlfriend?
I've been in a relationship for a while, yeah.
With whom?
Her name is Diane.
Diane Dreyer. Until the controversy, there was hardly any publicity about them. Marriage?
Not yet.
Maybe?
Who knows?
Do you want children? Do you want a family?
I would like a family. Yeah, I would. I really love kids, and I have a pretty good sense that I'd be a pretty good father.
Speak. Good girl.
He's right if his doting on his dogs is any measure.
Give it to me.
When he's not acting, he still tries to live anonymously. Here he is hiding under a stocking cap in New York, where he shares an apartment with his dogs, Minnie and Legacy. He may be a big movie star, but Spacey told us,
oh, good girl,
and then showed us that he does a lot of his own, shall we call it, dirty work. So you do that.
Kind of humiliating.
No, no, you do what everybody else
I think it's important, to be a good citizen.
This picture of the playful, loving man with his dogs is a far cry from the string of reprobates he's played on the screen.
He's gone.
Like the crippled con man in The Usual Suspects, for which he won his first Academy Award.
It was Kaiser Soze, Agent Kuyan. I mean, the devil himself. How do you shoot the devil in the back? What if you miss?
A part of acting forces you to spend time with yourself, examine qualities that a character might have that maybe you don't want to think you have, or maybe I haven't ever demonstrated them, but they're within me.
Now, Kevin Spacey, I think you're trying to tell us something. You were always playing these very dark, dangerous, ruthless, tough people, psychopaths, murderers, getting typecast almost.
I found that you take the roles that come along that you feel are the most interesting and the most challenging. I think sometimes what happens is that people like you the way they discover you, and I think that people then want to keep you there.
He's been typecast as a heavy, but what's odd is that he started out in comedy clubs. Ever since he was in high school in Southern California, he, Kevin Fowler then, worked on his impressions of movie stars like Jack Lemmon and Jimmy Stewart as a shoe salesman.
Size 8. I'll be right back. We've got it in the back here.
His favorite was Johnny Carson. He actually went to The Tonight Show in Burbank to study the man up close.
I spent like a summer going to The Tonight Show as many times as I could, getting in line, getting up early, calling in, pretending to be him on 2 occasions to a staff person to get tickets, and it worked.
I said, hi, listen, I got a friend in from Omaha tonight, and I just got this in. I would have called Betty myself, but I can't. I'm running. Could you possibly just put aside 2 tickets in the front row under the name Kevin Fowler? Thank you.
But that's awful.
There's a quality where the voice is almost in the back of the throat.
Yeah.
And what I learned was that doing Jack Lemmon and doing Johnny Carson are actually very close. Johnny Carson's up here, and Jack Lemmon's down here. It's just all about posture, kids.
After high school, he moved to New York to study drama at the prestigious Juilliard School, where they remember him as talented, but a troublemaker. Last May, he went back to talk to the students.
I think I was probably not a great student. I just think my ambition got in my way a lot. I did the work. I did the plays. I went to most of the classes.
What he really did was quit by mutual agreement, and then over the years worked his way, scraped his way into getting parts on stage and in the movies, while adding to his reputation for being temperamental and difficult. You were just crazed.
Yeah.
Crazed with ambition. Someone said that.
Yeah, and looking back on it now, I understand what I was up to, and it took me a long while to be able to take my foot off the gas. I watched a lot of my friends from high school and college making it very early.
They were ahead of you.
Way ahead of me.
Drove you crazy?
A little bit.
You've described yourself in this time of your life, before you've even begun to make it, as being in a period of attitudinals. I love that, attitudinals, where you say yourself your behavior was reprehensible. What were you doing?
I just think I got a huge ego. I think in my case it was that I really wasn't very good at that point. I just wasn't good enough to play in the leagues that I wanted to play in, and yet I was pretending like I was.
Then in 1984, he heard that Long Day's Journey into Night was coming to Broadway with Jack Lemmon.
I went on this crusade to get an audition, and
it was hard to get an audition?
It was hard to get an audition. They put us off and put us off and said no and said no and said no, and I was basically being told the door was shut. There was no way I was going to get in.
So finally, in desperation, he showed up at a lecture given by the play's director, Jonathan Miller.
I just sat there sort of frozen, thinking, what am I going to do? How am I going to meet him? And I was sort of looking around, and I looked down, and there was an elderly woman who was asleep next to me. And sticking out of her purse was an invitation to a cocktail reception in honor of Dr. Jonathan Miller following this particular event. And I thought...
Oh, no.
I thought, you know, she's tired. You know, she's not going to go because it's late. It was late. So I very carefully and very quietly, I lifted her invitation.
You stole her invitation.
I stole a little old lady's invitation.
You weren't attitudinal, you were felonious. He went to the party to convince Jonathan Miller to let him try out for the role of Jack Lemmon's son.
I did about 4 scenes with Jack. And at the end of it, Jack Lemmon walked up to me and he put his hand on my shoulder. He says, "You know what? I never thought I'd find a rotten kid, but you're it." Jesus Christ.
Tell us if this is true, that Jonathan Miller said to you, "Now you have a reputation for messing around." What did they mean by messing around?
I think I was probably going through my period of a little too much drinking, which I stopped quite early in my experience, actually.
Actually, his year on stage with Jack Lemmon marked a turning point in Spacey's life in many ways. It was then that he decided to try to be less difficult, less of a prima donna.
Hey, oh, he's turned over a new leaf. I know that's a lie.
I never wanted to be an actor. You forced me onto the stage.
That is a lie. You never
He was the most generous person that you could ever hope to meet and made you feel like you were welcome every day. And I just vowed to myself that that was the kind of person I wanted to try to be if I ever got fortunate enough to be in a position where leadership was required.
And now he's in that position. Here he is backstage before a performance last year of Eugene O'Neill's The Iceman Cometh, for which he won a Tony nomination and praise for the very qualities he so admired in Jack Lemmon.
When you're rid of the damn guilt that makes you lie to yourselves you're something you're not, and the remorse that makes you hide behind lousy pipe dreams about tomorrow. Brothers and sisters, this piece is real! It's here inside me!
Although he was clearly the star, he insisted on being listed alphabetically in the program. And he worked for a low-scale union salary so that thousands of inexpensive seats could be set aside for students. He wants young people to experience the thrill of live theater.
There is a relationship between an audience and the actors on stage. There is a breath that happens between us. And when that breath is perfect, there is no experience like it. There is nothing that can get in the way except a cell phone. One night in London, a cell phone, I was so mad.
What did you do?
I just stopped. I was in the middle of something, a scene, and I just stopped and I looked out and I said, "Tell them we're busy."
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You know, I think a few more of these we can win in November.
He's been a comic impressionist, a gifted stage actor, a celebrated film star, a movie producer and director. So, what's next?
By the time this airs, I may have made a deal to play Bobby Darin.
And every time your lips meet mine, oh.
We dug up some old video of Kevin singing. You know what? He could play Bobby Darin.
I'm loving the spin that I'm in.
Right now, I'm having the life that I always dreamed I would have as an actor. I'm having a complete blast.
Kevin Spacey told us that he's definitely going to play Bobby Darin.